Hello, this is Max. A random encounter in a store leads to a chase, where the girl professionally deals with her pursuers. You can subscribe to the channel after watching. It helps us a lot in realizing the content. The movie commences with a scene unfolding at a convenience store. Here, a man named Jimmy is searching for some chips. While he's engaged in this task, the shop attendant approaches to replenish the shelves, leading to a brief conversation between them. However, their interaction is interrupted when an elderly man approaches the counter. The attendant serves him his usual order, and the older man seems to take an unsettling interest in the view. Jimmy becomes uneasy due to the old man's behavior. Meanwhile, amidst these events, Natasha notices some suspicious individuals sneaking through the store's aisles. She swiftly ties her hair and readies a gun, alerting both Jimmy and the elderly man to take cover. Natasha shoots down the two men attempting to attack her, securing her own safety. Subsequently, she seizes a prepared bag and hastily departs from the scene. In the aftermath, Jimmy is left shaken by the incident, especially when he notices the old man's eerie gaze fixed on him. Jimmy rises from the ground, deeply affected by the situation. He leaves $1 on the counter before making his exit, clutching the bag tightly to his chest. He hurries to his car and drives off quickly, torn between the urge to do the right thing by returning and his instinct to escape the danger. While he contemplates this, Natasha unexpectedly emerges from his car trunk, rolling onto the back seat. She draws his attention to the pursuing vehicles, prompting Jimmy to accelerate. Natasha shoots at the pursuers and carelessly breaks the back window. After the chase, Natasha suggests pulling over at a nearby diner to elevate Jimmy's blood sugar. She remains remarkably unperturbed by the situation, changing out of her uniform in the back seat. At the diner, she introduces herself as Nat and adopts a cheerful demeanor. While Jimmy's condition improves but remains far from ideal, his anxiety persists, coupled with a sense of guilt for fleeing the scene earlier. He informs Nat that he cannot continue traveling with her, as he must fulfill his role as a witness to the incident. Confused about the motives of the armed men who attempted to rob the store, Jimmy queries Natasha. She discloses that the store was a mere front for a criminal family she is somewhat affiliated with. Additionally, she confesses to embezzling money from her employers. Nat attempts to persuade Jimmy to stay, but he remains resolute. She inquires about the contents of the bag he is so protective of, and he reveals that it contains the ashes of his deceased brother, who tragically lost his life along with their entire family in an accident. The ashes were meant to be scattered at the beach, but Jimmy's plans were disrupted by the chaotic events. Learning about his loss, Nat regrets her earlier teasing and advises him to proceed with his original intentions. She then gets up to fetch money to compensate Jimmy for the damage sustained by his car. Meanwhile, at the convenience store, Ellis, the owner's son, is infuriated by Natasha's escape and the demise of the hired thugs. He awaits the arrival of a renowned fixer known as Ask, who holds a prominent position within the syndicate. This organization relies on her expertise to handle various tasks. Ellis discusses the situation with Ask, who reveals that the guns were connected to Ellis's father. She informs him that if he wishes to preserve his family's legacy, he'll have to personally pursue the petite 100-pound girl, Natasha, himself. This sets Ellis on a mission to track her down. In another scene, Jimmy settles the bill for their food, and Natasha returns from the restroom, effortlessly picking up a shake from a different table. She engages in a serious conversation with him, adopting a seductive and tough demeanor, a stark contrast to her previous cheerful demeanor. Natasha advises Jimmy that if he continues on the run, he'll be implicated in a murder, while returning would make him a snitch. She offers to provide him protection on the journey to the coast, under the condition that he accompanies her instead of taking the truck. With limited options and the prospect of protection, Jimmy reluctantly agrees. She sips her milkshake and instructs him to call her Tasha. As they interact, Ask investigates further. She searches behind the counter and discovers a postcard featuring the Hawaiian Islands, deducing that Natasha might be headed there. She also hacks into the store's hidden CCTV cameras, catching footage of Natasha's adept combat skills as she eliminates two assailants. Ellis observes Natasha's actions with a mix of fascination and skepticism, noting her apparent familiarity with such situations. The footage reveals Natasha getting into Jimmy's car and driving away, providing Ask and Ellis with a lead. Back in the car, Natasha paints her toenails while discussing abstract topics like string theory, which irritates Jimmy. He becomes frustrated when she drops nail color despite his warnings. When he refers to her as Tasha, she insists on being called Nat and playfully addresses him as Sir. He questions if she's on something due to her fluctuating behavior. She explains that she has a dissociative identity disorder, leading her to possess two distinct personalities with varying traits and skills. Their journey hits a snag as a car's engine overheats, emitting smoke. They exit the vehicle, and Nat accidentally spills their last bottle of water. They retrieve a container from the trunk and venture into the wilderness in search of water. During this time, Nat inquires about Jimmy's profession, learning that he's a forensic accountant. In response to her curiosity, he recounts an intriguing case from his career. They eventually locate a stream and resume their journey, fostering a growing camaraderie as they traverse diverse towns and landscapes. As the car's engine overheats in, Jimmy and Nat are forced to make another stop. Jimmy is perplexed by the repeated engine issues and feels genuinely concerned. As Nat watches from the passenger seat, a new personality emerges, Tasha, distinguished by her hair being tied up. Tasha showcases some provocative moves for no apparent reason and astutely identifies the engine problem. While fixing the issue, she intentionally makes Jimmy uncomfortable with her behavior. Once the engine is operational again, she enters the car. When Jimmy inquires about the transition, Nat claims to have no awareness of it. The scene shifts back to Ellis and Ask. Ellis isn't keen on taking lives and simply wants to apprehend Natasha. Ask, however, asserts that he must set an example for the others, given his position within the family business. She also senses that Ellis may have feelings for Natasha, a notion he dismisses as foolish. Returning to Jimmy and Natasha, they halt due to Natasha's need to relieve herself. She asks Jimmy, an accountant, for assistance in laundering the stolen money she has saved up. She reveals she has a substantial amount, $650,000. Astonished, Jimmy declines involvement due to the legal risks. Natasha rises after relieving herself, but as she does, a black sedan approaches rapidly. Jimmy alerts her, and he rushes to the car to retrieve a pistol. Tasha makes a return appearance, performing a prolonged and impressive fight sequence, ultimately eliminating the two men. As Jimmy struggles with the pistol, Tasha completes her actions and dusts off her hands. She explains her combat skills were acquired from a samurai master during her travels in East Asia. Later, Ellis and Ask pull up behind them, pointing guns. Tasha confronts them with a grin. Ellis hesitates to shoot, and Ask urges him to do so, to no avail. Tasha and Jimmy escape, leaving Ellis frustrated. Back in the car, Nat reappears, examining Jimmy for injuries. He questions her about the scene with Ellis and Ask. She explains that it was indeed Ellis and his fixer. Natasha discusses her engagement to Ellis, noting that it was Tasha who ultimately wore the engagement ring. Jimmy expresses surprise, and Nat acknowledges she didn't have feelings for Ellis. Back with Ellis and Ask, they deal with a flat tire, and Ask criticizes Ellis's infatuation with Natasha. She insists he needs a mature woman to enhance his image and protect the family's honor. When Ellis becomes annoyed, Ask points her gun at him to silence him. In another scene, Nat takes control of the car and shares stories of Jimmy's brother. She stops the car near a cliff-like area and encourages Jimmy to step out of his comfort zone. Nat removes her shirt as well, encouraging Jimmy to live more boldly. She instructs him to shout that he won't be pushed around, and after some initial hesitation, Jimmy joins in with enthusiasm. He vents about various things, even climbing on top of the car and dropping his pants in a burst of joy. Afterward, they continue driving and switch radio stations. When two cars approach rapidly from behind, Tasha springs into action. She instructs Jimmy to act as a decoy while she adopts a Native American disguise and grabs a crossbow. She efficiently eliminates their pursuers with impressive archery skills, leaving Jimmy in awe of her capabilities. When he stops to pick her up, she explains her time spent with a Native American clan. As they drive on, Jimmy retrieves some papers from his boxes and reveals that he's taking control of the situation. Meanwhile, Ellis and Ask discover the bodies of the men Tasha eliminated, accompanied by a note from her declaring the situation is over. Ask remarks that she hopes this provides the closure Ellis needs. Ellis becomes agitated, questioning Ask's strong investment in the matter and suggesting she might be receiving a bonus from his father. Ask reveals that her father mentored Ellis's father, making the situation a rite of passage for both of them. In their car, Ask discusses her plans to intensify their pursuit. She reveals that one of her contracts will trigger red flags for the car Natasha and Jimmy are driving. alerting authorities when they pass traffic cameras. Ellis expresses a desire to be more involved in the plan, indicating that it's not just about a rite of passage or revenge anymore. He wants to ensure no one else can have Natasha. The scene shifts to Jimmy stopping the car at a client's house for the night. Over drinks, he asks Natasha what his name means to her, and she responds that she doesn't know. Jimmy confesses his feelings for her, explaining his attraction to her capabilities, charm, and wit. Natasha reacts negatively, unable to believe he's fallen for Tasha. She later waits for him at home, and they engage in a game of funky snooker. Meanwhile, Ellis receives a call from his father, revealing that the man in the bar is Tasha's accomplice. The following morning, Ellis's men take Jimmy's car, prompting Jimmy and Tasha to head to an airfield to locate the vehicle containing Bobby's ashes. After finding it, they sneak in to retrieve the car and learn that Nat and Jimmy slept together. However, they are captured before they can escape. When Jimmy regains consciousness, he and Nat are tied up. Nat confides in Jimmy about her troubled past as an orphan and the creation of her alter ego, Tasha, as an imaginary friend. She feels accepted by him for who she truly is. Jimmy agrees, expressing his love for both sides of her personality. Their conversation is interrupted when Ellis and Ask arrive. Ellis attempts to convince Tasha to come with him, but when she refuses, he threatens Jimmy instead. To save Jimmy, Nat agrees to go with Ellis, but when Ask intervenes, Ellis shoots her and destroys the other men. He takes Nat and Bobby's ashes with him. Freed from his restraints, Jimmy shoots Ask and pursues Ellis. They have a confrontation during which Ellis tosses the ashes into a stream. Just as Ellis is about to destroy Jimmy, Nat intervenes and they manage to overpower Ellis. Jimmy then drives Nat to the coast, where they discuss the possibility of a life together. They decide to be together, sharing a kiss and walking away. The movie ends with the box of ashes ultimately ending up in the ocean. In a final scene, Ellis confronts his father, who berates him. However, Ellis has found a new purpose and vows to find Natasha and eliminate her once and for all, setting up a potential sequel. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen, and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.